How are you guys doing? No one ever talks to me. They only talk to me to say, where's the other Jason? I'm not used to it. So thank you for acknowledging me and giving me a modicum of respect. My name's Jason Fenwick. For those of you who don't know me, I am Pat Nimmer's third partner, used to be silent partner. Pat's walking out the door. Oh, okay.
You told me to get out the room so you could say sleep.
Oh, yeah, let me back up. What I'm about to say is in no way, shape, or form been authorized by management. None, zero, zip. But it would be more positive than numbers. How's that?
Great.
What?
Great.
There you go, great. Anyway, my name's Jason Fenwick. I'm not a realtor, never been a realtor, probably won't be a realtor, but I am their third partner. I'm a business analyst. I analyze things from a business standpoint. And so I have been doing this. It's just my natural way of thinking. But what I wanted to talk to you guys about today, and my sections are always entitled Business, Your Business, is the importance of business in our community, importance of business in our lives. So this week I had an uncomfortable conversation with my children. And I had to recount to them what I'm about to recount to you all, which is the first time a police officer pointed a gun at my head. I was 10 years old. My mother sent me to a little store 3 blocks away, get some milk. The police officer stopped me, asked me what was in my bag. I said milk. Asked me where I'd gotten it. I told him the store. Fortunately, I kept the receipt, which my mother required me to do. And I showed him the receipt, and he let me go. I got home and I recounted this to my mother. Now, I was a little dark for the neighborhood that I grew up in. I grew up in a 22-room home, which Emmerich and Pat made fun of me about in the early 70s, late 60s. So the first time they did that, my mother said, what are you going to do? He said, I'll handle this. And we're not the protesting people. There are many forms of protest. We support them all. My father said, I'm going to handle this. And my father built doctors' buildings. So those buildings you see next to hospitals that are like 8 stories tall that have 50 doctors in it, that was new back in the early 70s. So what he did is he called the guy who was supplying us with concrete. He said, hey, Bob, after his name was Mike. Hey, Mike, we have an issue. What's the issue, Doc? Something wrong with the concrete? No, we have an issue because a police officer aimed a gun at my son's head for no reason. The guy said, oh my God, why would he do that? Because the person he was calling had no concept of what it's like to be on this side of the fence. My father told him he did it because he was a little dark. And Mike, the concrete guy, said, okay, kind of like, well, why are you calling me? And my father informed him that he was purchasing a large amount of concrete and that he knew Mike was friends with the mayor and other people and that he didn't want to have to shop his concrete around. Everybody understand what I just said? Mm-hmm. Then he picked up the phone and he called the architect. And he said, hey, you did a bang-up job on our first building. He goes, now I'm planning the second. My brother-in-law is an architect out in Kansas in a builder. I was thinking about bringing him in. Why would you do that, Doc? Because someone aimed a gun at my kid's head. Nobody said anything. Then he went down the list, the plumbing guy, this, people who historically wouldn't care whether or not a cop aimed a gun at a kid's head. Irony is, everyone suddenly cared. Now, I'm not sure they cared about me, I'll be honest with you. I believe America is the greatest country in the world. But the reason I am so passionate about people owning their own businesses and growing their own businesses is because I have seen personally the impact of having a business speak to power. Lying in the streets, that's great. I'm not against that. Having a sit down, that's great. Being on TV, that's great. But I have seen personally the quiet impact of being able to say, I sure hope that this plumbing order for this building stays with you. I'd like to continue doing business, but I'm concerned about some things. Irony happened. very quickly, other powers that be got together, and the commissioner of the police and the police officer came over and apologized to my father and my mother, and assured them that wouldn't happen again. So the second time a police officer aimed a gun at my head, that first time I was 10, walking home so I could see my house. The second time I was on my family's property at one of our buildings like this. I had been painting. My dad had instructed me to go paint something. I had been painting. I was coming out of the building with bags full of paint. And I was going to take them over. It was just easier than carrying each individual can. Take them over, sit them down, and then seal them, do whatever. Cop sees me coming out, pulls around, aims the gun at me. Now, on each of these occasions, no one ever asked, well, what are you doing before the gun came out? We used to call it, I don't know about where y'all grew up, but we called it the silver flash. It came out simultaneous to stepping out of the car. That was hello. So, at hello, in the silver flash, I told him, I'm painting. What do you got in the bag? I got open cans of paint that I'm trying to take right over there. He informed me, he didn't believe me, and he told me to put the bag down. The problem with putting the bag down is I put it down, all this paint was just going to go everywhere. So I'm stuck. The good news for me is I fear my father more than I fear them. I'm like, I'm not putting this paint down. So I have to explain why I got to clean all this stuff. And so I'm having this conversation. I'm like, sir, why did you even stop here? Why did you come? We heard there might be a burglary, which is what I heard at 10 years old with my milk. And I said, sir, there's been no burglary. If there had been, the alarm company would have called this number and given this code. Sir, my ID's in my pocket. If you let me just set this stuff down gently, I'll give it to you because my family's name is on this building. You walk right around the corner. He goes, if your family owns this building, I'm the Pope. I'm like, sir, you're the Pope. You're My father's partner, Dr. Palmer, comes around dressed in a suit. I still remember this to this day. And the guy turns, and now he's like, now here was the interesting thing, which I hadn't seen. I'd seen it in my father in other situations, but it was interesting to see it in someone else. Dr. Palmer walked around just like this in his suit and was surprised, like, what's going on? Now here's the funny thing. He didn't address this person aiming a gun at him. He addressed me like it was, like I'm supposed to be, Jason, what's going on? This painting, this officer's stopped, this, that, and the other. And I told him what happened. He turned to the officer and said, why do you have the gun pulled on this young man? And the officer just looked at him. And he said it as calmly as that, from a position of authority. An officer looked at him and he said, I don't know what you're doing, and I don't know you. Put your hands up. You see how I'm standing? Dr. Palmer didn't move. He looked at him and said, what are you going to do? Shoot the owner of the building on his own property for walking in his own office? Dr. Palmer was also African American. And I could see that the cop was generally confused, but I was happy that the gun wasn't being used. Kind of like Dr. Palmer didn't move. He said, now you're the owner. I thought you said your dad. That's my dad's partner, one of his partners. His name's on the building too if you want to go around and look at it. Dr. Palmer didn't move, but it was his calmness and like, let me explain something to you, son. You're going to put that gun down. You're going to get back in the car. You're going to get back in your car, and you're going to go on with your duties, speaking to the police officer. He goes, and if you're lucky, I'm not going to call Chief so-and-so personally to inquire about this. That's the second cop that came around. Now, the interesting thing is that guy became real good friends because he then made sure all of our properties were taken care of. But again, phone call went out. Hey, Mike, you remember that concrete you're delivering? Someone aimed a gun at my kid's head again on our own property. Oh, my God, Doc. That shouldn't be happening. You got to remember, I'm going to church and school with their kids, so it's not like there's this major difference. I live in the same neighborhood. So, that was the second time the police officer aimed a gun at my head. The third time the police officer aimed a gun at my head, something interesting occurred. Now, again, I've done nothing in each of these occasions other than be existing. The third time, He looked at my high school jacket, which said St. Francis Prep, and he said, "Who's your father?" And I told him. And he stepped back with his partner. He said, "Okay, you, go stand over there." Separate from my friends. So I went and stood over here, separate from my friends, wondering, am I in more trouble or less trouble? He came over to me and said, "I need you to leave immediately." "Go ahead, go now." I said, "Well, I'm with them. They drove." He goes, "Which ones?" "Him, him, him, and him." Now, we were doing nothing other than being black at a movie theater. That was it. He said, "You four, go, leave." Power, at least in America, which I believe is the greatest country in the world. The greatest country in the world. It provides everyone the most amount of opportunity. It isn't fair. I'm not going to say it's fair. But I firmly believe it's the greatest country in the world. And no matter if you're short, tall, skinny, fat, male, female, whatever your background, religion, it provides opportunity. But power only speaks to other power. So if you have a population that doesn't own property, doesn't vote, and doesn't own businesses, it's real easy to marginalize that population because no one cares. Conversely, anyone in America, and we've seen it time and time again with immigrant populations that come over, build up a business, and have a seat at the table. The seat at the table is driven by business. When the Montgomery boycott occurred, most people know Dr. King and all of that. The names they don't know are A.G. Gaston, who was a millionaire in Alabama, lower Alabama, African-American millionaire, who owned multiple businesses, banks, real estate companies, life insurance. He's the one who brought the buses around. Said, "Hey, I'm going to take some of my company's resources and help transport people." Everyone knows about the church's involvement, but the church leaders were meeting with the business people because the revolution has to be financed. The revolution has to be financed. The revolution has to be financed. Equality has to be financed. When you hear America talking about going into war, not going into war, the primary discussion is how are we going to pay for it? We have got to pay for our own things. So all of this, hey, we want scholarships, that's an aging playbook. There is enough here for all of us to build businesses. And it's incumbent upon you to build your business. And the reason it's incumbent upon you to build your business is because the second half of the conversation that my father had was, Reverend so-and-so is going to be calling you to have a discussion about some of the things that could be done, possibly different. My father and his friends understood we're business people. Our job isn't to walk the streets and carry picket signs. There's nothing wrong with that. There's a role of everything. So I'm not denigrating, I'm just simply saying, our role is to open a door and make sure that if you still want to sell concrete, if you still want to get $30,000 a month, every single month, for this entire space, see, they listen to us. When we call the landlord, they listen. They return our phone call real quick, don't they? The reason being is we're their largest tenant. And we're their largest tenant not only in this building, but when you walk out and you look at the next building over, we're their largest tenant there compared, you get what I'm saying? People who rent this amount of space just don't drop out of the sky. So they listen. They'll listen more to Pat Nemrick than they will to one of you all individually. But here's my goal for everyone in this room. White, black, tall, short, male, female, whatever. Because each has their issues. It's easier to be a man in America than it is to be a woman. I'll be honest, I'm a man. But I have 2 daughters. And nothing has brought that to my attention more. The need for equality there. than for one of you women to have a vibrant, Pat has a voice because she runs a vibrant business and a growing business. And so this is where we stand. We've got to grow our business. You've got to grow your business. Not only so that you can impact your own household, but so that you can impact the community. Where's Frank? Hit it, Frank. Which one? I have two quick things and then I'm done. Hit this. This is interesting because it shows that power in America is the same no matter who it is. So it isn't black, white, you know, male, female, anything. You got volume? We're gonna work on that. All right, let's
Boys, to the copper lake.
The first committee.
And success. Oh.
Daddy, I tell you, I haven't seen you in such high spirits in months. I think you boys ought to start planning a new project right away.
Well, I'll tell you something, JR, you're right. First, tie one on.
How about it?
This looks like some kind of party. Why wasn't I invited?
Well, sit down, Bobby. We've got a lot of room, a lot of booze.
Thank you, JR. That's real kind of you. Maybe you can explain something to me, like why I wasn't told that Daddy was going to pull $10 million out of Ewing Oil accounts. Did that slip your mind?
You just hold on, Bobby. JR, don't discuss my business with you or anybody else unless I tell him. You understand?
Okay, Daddy. Then why didn't you tell me? Didn't you think I should know?
I was going to tell you tonight.
Tonight? I want those kind of things discussed with me before you act, not after. You're dealing behind my back is making me look like a fool.
Now, just what the hell are you talking about?
I called Les at the bank and asked him to transfer $12 million from the account.
So what? You got 100 times that much.
I'm talking liquid assets. Cash, Daddy, cash, and we don't have that amount. And you know why? Because you took $10 million.
You damn right I took it. It's mine.
That money belongs to Ewing Oil.
And who in the hell do you think Ewing Oil is? It's me. Ewing Oil belongs to me, and don't you forget it, boy.
And you gave me Ewing Oil to run in writing. And that makes you obliged to consult me before you do anything that concerns that company.
Obliged? You telling me that I'm obliged to ask you how to spend my own money any damn way I see fit?
That's right. You gave me the power to run that company, and damn it, I intend to run it.
So I gave you power, huh? Well, let me tell you something, boy. If I did give you power, you got nothing. Nobody gives you power. Real power is something you take.
Now, for those of you who don't know, the younger boy is his son, Bobby. The older man is Jock. Started the company, and it's his company. Go ahead, hit pause, whatever. My point in showing you this clip is, this is American history. This is economics. I can boil all of my business degrees, law degrees, everything down to this one scene. Power isn't something you ask for. You don't go say, hey, excuse me, tell me your name. Keith, will you value my son's life more than you know, a little bit more, please? Please don't shoot him. What are we doing asking people not to kill our kids? But conversely, we don't need to stop all the traffic. What'll stop all of traffic is our economics. See, the Montgomery boycott didn't end because folk got tired of walking. The Montgomery boycott ended because the bus company president said, we have lost the most amount of money ever in the history of our company, and we are at the brink of going bankrupt because the majority of people who ride our buses are African Americans. And you can't force somebody to ride a bus. They tried that. They tried to stop the personal taxis, the church buses, all that stuff. That's what stopped. But see, in order to have that type of bargaining chip, whether you're male, female, black, white, whatever, you have to have something. And what Bobby learned in this scene is he had nothing. Because when someone gives you something, I'm going to give you this. When they want it, they can take it away. Now see, 10 years ago, the powers that be laughed at us openly. When this place was open. They laughed at Emmerich. They laughed at Pat. There weren't a lot of female brokers running offices back then. They laughed at it. But 10 years later, now we get invited to have conversations with them. The tone and tenor of our first conversation about renting what appears to be now like a closet or just the lobby of this building, begging folk to let us come in here is completely different. If we want the whole second floor, that's a 30-second conversation. And the reason being is because we stepped boldly out, marshaled our resources, picked up our bucket exactly where it was, and we started building something. And we need and want everyone else in this room to do the same. Because we need to be able to reach across the aisle and have a discussion. If you're not buying concrete, what does the concrete guy care about your kid? Let's be honest. We're all real busy. Nobody cares. We're all too busy to care about it. If you're not buying concrete, what do I care if you have an institution of a reputation, an institution of sexually assaulting young women who work at your company and not paying them enough? What do I care about that? If I'm that, it's because I'm buying a whole lot of concrete from you, and I have 2 daughters, that I can have that conversation. Does that make sense? We've got to be able to sit across the table and say, look, my father never asked anyone to do anything for him. Hey, I don't need you to go talk to the chief of police about this. He never called the chief of police. The chief of police called him that night. He just reminded Mike that aren't you a friend of the chief of police? This is horrible. And I know we're going to meet next week to discuss your concrete order. Does everybody understand? You got to be able to have that conversation and have that leverage. Thank you. Because sitting outside with signs, and that's an admirable way, and we have to do things every way we can. But there's also at this point in time an effective way. So I remind you, because my segment is entitled, it isn't entitled American History, it's entitled Your Business. That your business paves the way for women to get treated, to get paid what they're supposed to be paid. It paves the way that women don't need to be sexually assaulted. It paves the way that our kids don't have to be afraid that they're going to get shot. It paves the way that our kids don't have to stand on the street corner with buckets asking for nickels versus just getting checks. When I was a kid and we needed baseball uniforms or football uniforms, I used to ask my dad, who are all these people's names on these checks, Dad? Because none of them were the people. If I went to see Mr. Johnson, he didn't give me a check that said Mr. and Mrs. Johnson. It said Johnson Furniture. I went to see this person, they didn't give me a check. It said, Edmondson Chevrolet. I'm like, well, who? Some of these people, I don't need, because I'd have to say who gave me the money, and a lot of times I'd look at the check, I said, I have no idea. I can only tell you who gave me the check. I don't know who these people are. But our kids are sitting on street corners asking for nickels with buckets in the hot sun, running in and out of traffic. There's a different way that America does business. And we, as business people, need to join our fellow business people, because that's when the real conversation can occur. And it isn't a conversation of yelling. It's a conversation of mutual benefit. Mike understood that he could assist my father with something. And in return, that's the type of person my father would like to buy concrete from, because we can get concrete anywhere. And if you don't care about my kids, why would I care about yours eating right? There aren't a lot of buildings of this size getting built. So I remind you that your business has an impact. It has an impact on every social issue you want to deal with. It has an impact on every religious issue, because the religious issues and the charitable issues have to be financed. And if you can't finance it, then who will? See, as Emmerich mentioned earlier, there comes a time when, what'd you call it, the money switch goes off. And the reason the money switch goes off is because, hey, we're going to give you so much, see what you do with it. But at a certain point, we all have to fish. So 2015 is upon us. It's been a great 10 years. It's been a great 10 years, or the great 10 years that we've had. We've been able to live and enjoy the fruits of our labor, and we've been able to see you guys grow, and we're excited about what's going to happen next. When you get up, Frank said, I'm ending right now. I want you guys to think about where you want things to be in the next 10 years, 20 years, 50 years. And that's whether you're thinking about it from your standpoint of your business, your family, your children, etc.